Hey guys, Sam the Raid Man back here today with another video. Today is going to be the final installation of our, or I guess more of a summary video, but the summary video for our clan boss damage dealers. We tested these with the Myth Fu comp, which if you're not familiar is a Fushan lead, giving him a speed lead. He also places decreased defense. Then you use Demitha on a 3-1 ratio to keep you unkillable or really blocks the damage, so you're always at 100 health. You use Tuhanarok, or you can use Eris. I use Tuhanarok to increase your speed and remove any type of debuff to keep you affinity friendly. So you have those three, and then you also have I use Seeker in that team as well to basically keep you and help you get to that 3-1 by constantly increasing your turn meter. And then that leaves the fifth spot open for any type of damage dealer. And so I thought, okay, for anybody who's building this, what are the best damage dealing options? And I think there are some that are slept on, and there are some that are obvious. So I wanted to test those out, and we ended up testing 23 champions out. And we're going to get into the rankings and which ones I like, which ones surprised me, which ones disappointed me in a little bit. But first, I want to start off with kind of some omissions or champions I wasn't able to test, which is for one or two reasons. The first reason being I just don't have them. I can't test a champion I don't have. I don't have access to the test server. Just not possible. The second reason would be if they just don't work for the team composition. So I'll get into a few of those. I'll kind of go through each faction to see if there's anybody I missed out on, and then we'll go to the list. So for Banner Lords, Stoutus can be okay, but nothing spectacular. The biggest one I wasn't able to do is Septimus. Septimus has an A1 that hits really hard, an A2 that's max based off of enemy max HP that hits really hard, and then he's got a passive, which each attack has a 30% chance of increasing the duration of all debuffs by one turn. So this would be great because he doesn't bring any debuffs, but if you pair him with a Poisoner or someone in Toxic set, he can increase the duration of those buffs. Or if we're just using Fushan for decreased defense, he can increase the duration of that to make sure it's up at all times. And he does hit really hard. I don't think he'd be top tier, but I do think he puts up pretty good damage and is definitely a viable option. In the High Elves, I think we kind of tested them all of the good options. For Sacred Order, Corvus isn't bad, but he's more of a secondary damage dealer. So I really do think we tested the best damage dealers there. For Barbarians, Chronum is not bad, but nothing spectacular, so I don't think we missed anybody there. Ogren Tribes, same thing here, nothing crazy. Eurogrim down here in the Epics is not a bad one, but he doesn't hit very hard, so it's just his poisons, so I think he'd be very middle of the pack for us. Lizardman is where we see our first big omission, and that was Dracomorph. Dracomorph is, if not the best, one of the best damage dealers in the game, particularly for Clan Boss. His A1 hits harder for each debuff on the target. His A2 attacks 4 times at random. Each hit places a poison debuff. This is the same as Aethar's ability, just hits harder and places decreased defense and weaken. The only downside of Draco is that this doesn't hit, right? So he can't deal damage. He can't get War Master on this one. But the A2 or A1 and A2 hit so hard that I think he'd definitely be top 3. That's really it for Lizardmen. For Skinwalkers, I don't really think there's anybody. Samson's meh, he's okay. Nishak is actually really good. Let me talk about Nishak for a second. He does bombs and poisons, and he does them both really well. But he gives him, like, to use his kit fully, you have to use this one, which grants an extra turn. And I have Nishak, but I couldn't figure this out, couldn't make this fit, and the extra turn just throws us out of sync. And if you don't use this, his kit isn't near as good. I also don't have him booked, so I really wasn't able to do that. But he is definitely a great option if you can make him work. For the orcs, I don't think there was really anybody. Kreela can be okay, and she's great at boosting the damage of your team because she does ally attack, but her own damage numbers are kind of okay. And I didn't want to include ally attackers or counter attackers because you get a really inflated team number, but their actual number is never that impressive. Let's see, we did Ogren Tribe, so now we're at Demon Spawn. Demon Spawn, nobody in particular. Sissia is good. Sissia has increased the duration of HP burns on her A1. She places decreased defense and weaken, and then she places HP burn, and she can also activate it. If she places it, she grants an extra turn, which is an issue again for this composition. Plus, I don't have her, so she would be great, but just tricky to make work. Shazar actually does really good damage. He does bombs, does increase attack for himself, but again, extra turns. So I would have to turn this off, do the bombs, which hit okay, and his A1 damage increases by 15% for each debuff on the target, which does hit really hard. So you can tune him in a particular team to hit really hard. For Undead Hordes, I don't think we really missed anybody. Little Miss Annie can do some damage, and so can Rhodos, but Rhodos gets extra turns, and I don't have Little Miss Annie. So really nothing particular there. For Dark Elves, Vizier is great because he extends debuffs, so he can keep debuffs up forever. but doesn't hit super hard and doesn't really bring any important debuffs for my composition at least himself. For Night Revenants, there's a few. Shemnath does pretty good damage and increases his crit damage for each debuff on the enemy, so her damage. So Shemnath can do really good damage. If you're curious about that, go check out HH Gaming. Saphira uses Shemnath and his team and sees some really good numbers. Theodore can do great damage with HP burn and poison activation, but nothing. He doesn't hit super hard. But I also don't have Theodore. Cavalex is pretty good damage. I was always just a little disappointed with Cavalex's numbers personally. And I think that's it for Night Revs. Let's move on down to the Dwarves. Herndig does good damage, but Herndig gains turn meter whenever he's hit. So we weren't able to use that. Acrizia is top tier. Every hit is max HP, but sadly, I don't have Acrizia. Much to my woe, that is my most wanted champion in the game. Shadowkin, you get the first one that we see, one of the biggest snubs, which is Gentoro, who does decrease defense and weaken, and this decreases the cooldown of this skill, which is his decreased defense and weaken, and then every fourth time he uses this ability, attacks 5 times, and it is, once he hits 5 times, it is the hardest hitting single target ability in the game. Now the issue with Gentoro, all turn meter fill effects are increased by 50% when used on this champion, and Seeker increases turn meter. So Gentoro, I just could not make the speed tune work without completely changing the team. So Gentoro would definitely be up there as one of the best damage dealers. For Sylvan Watchers, I really don't think there's any. There is Ruella, but I use her in my new team, and a big part of her kit is this turn meter fill and increased crit rate, which I would have to turn off for that one. I think if you turn that off, you're just losing a lot of her value. So with that said, let's get on to the list, and we'll kind of just go from top to bottom, and then we'll start talking about some of the interesting things I noticed. So you can see here we tested 23 champions for damage. We see at the bottom, it says 24, but that's because the top row is just the categories. So Ninja is number 2, but he's actually number 1. Gaius is 24, but he's actually number 23. So let's kind of go really quick synopsis for each of them, starting at the bottom. So Gaius did 22 million, and his team only did 84 million. This was also with a 2-star Phantom Touch Blessing. The biggest issue with Gaius is he hits kind of hard, but I really geared him for bombs, and bombs just don't do enough damage. I really hope Raid buffs that, but we just need bombs to do more damage, especially against bosses. 23 is Ruggnor, and I was pretty happy with Ruggnor's damage. He does decrease defense and weaken. He's a epic from the Dwarf faction, and it's a really good team number, and this is with no blessing. He does good damage. Definitely more of an early game champion, but still viable, especially if that's your only decreased defense and weaken option. And then I'll get on to one of the biggest disappointments of the list, which was Rhonda. I tested her. I built her the day she came out. I ascended her. I built her, and she did 27 million. She did more in Toxic Set, but anybody would do more in Toxic Set, really. She just doesn't hit hard enough on the clan boss, to be honest. I mean, I turned off her A3, which is AoE, so I'm using the 3-hitter and the 4-hitter with Giant Slayer, and I just really didn't see enough damage. I was really hoping for 35, 40 million, and she did 27. I ran it twice, about the same numbers. Now, Kyoku, I really wanted to include here because I think she's kind of a sleeper champion. She's an ally protector, but she does smack. And she did 27.5 million. She brings weaken, she brings some decreased attack or HP burn. An issue with her damage is the HP burn isn't consistent unless you have someone else on the team placing decreased attack at the same time, which I did, but this was really hard to tune. But 27 million from a non-damage dealer, from a support champion, I think is great. Now 20 is 19 is Ashwalker, and this definitely has a huge asterisk besides it. I included him because I wanted to test how much damage a 5-star Phantom Touch Blessing would include, and it made about a 10 million difference. So it went from, I think, around 7 million to 17 million when we put Masteries on, and then from 17 to 27 million when we put the Phantom Touch Blessing on. So that's not really his numbers as much as his combined with the Phantom Touch. 18 is one of my favorite videos, also one of my best performing videos, Elder Scarg. It's got a super hard hitting ability that hits like 6 times, and he brings some HP burn, and he was fun. Maybe not the best or most meta champion, but he was very fun. Taurus I always wanted to include because I used to use him a long time ago in my double man-eater composition, and he does hit really hard, plus bringing all the poisons and weaken. Definitely not top tier, but still really good. Varl was really fun, but he was also a bit of a disappointment. Only brought 30 million. Super cool looking champion. Really cool weapons. just doesn't, just a little lackluster. We need a little more damage. He's got a passive where he builds up this attack during the fight, and I didn't see the results as much as I wanted to. Bellinor, actually, his numbers got nerfed. He got buffed, but it did decrease his regular damage by a little bit. But now he has an AoE, decreased defense and weaken. So Bellinor's value skyrocketed, but his value in Clan Boss kind of decreased a little bit. Now here at number 14, pretty close to the middle of the list, you see the starter Kale. And I wanted to show this because I wanted to compare him to Dark Kale, but also I wanted to show how powerful Poison is and how viable he is for in-game. People get him and they want to leave him in the dust, but he can, if not carry you, he can at least go alongside you throughout the duration of the game. Number 13 is Geomancer, and Geomancer is amazing. He is better in an unkillable team as opposed to a block damage team, because in an unkillable team, you're still taking all the damage that the clan boss is doing, which is a lot, and he would reflect part of that damage, but you just can't die. But versus a block damage team, which is what we're testing, he's not taking any damage. So he's just getting the chance at the max HP procs. So I do think his numbers will be much higher in an unkillable team. Geomancer, if you're using an unkillable team like a Maneater team, definitely consider him. Number 12 is Nethril, my clan boss damage dealer for about 6 months after I got him. He's got a triple hitter A1 with a chance of placing poisons. He doesn't hit super hard, that's his shortcoming, but he does lay a lot of poisons. Number 11, we start getting into the really popular clan boss damage dealers, and this is Fane. This is with a 1-star Phantom Touch. He did 36 million, but you start seeing, some of these team numbers pop up over 100 million. She does bring decreased defense and weaken and poisons. Her issue is that she's so squishy, you can't really use her in a non-unkillable team. Number 10, we're in the top 10 now. We have a Cult Brawler. I was impressed with his damage. He brings in a ton of poisons, but he also kind of hits really hard. You just turn off his A2 just to the A1s, and we saw some pretty impressive numbers from a Cult Brawler. Number 9 is Dark Kale that you get from the Doom Tower rotations, and he's got a poison activation on his A1, which is really, really cool. And you see how close these damage dealers are from number 7 all the way down to number 11, or within 600,000 of each other. So I would say any of these champions are kind of interchangeable. But Dark Kale kind of just brings that. He does bring some decreased attack, which is helpful if you're building a traditional clan boss team, but nothing spectacular for a regular clan boss team. And then I would say this is probably my biggest surprise of the run was Finnex. He's got the second hardest hitting A1. If there's debuffs on the enemy, he'll hit twice. I turned off the rest of his abilities, just did A1s over and over again, and he did almost 37 million. He outdamaged all of these poisoners. He outdamaged Bellinor. I mean, he smacked. That was one of my favorite videos. If you guys haven't seen that, go check it out. You really will be surprised. Number 7, one of my favorite videos was Swirin, and she's a newer champion, and she hits really hard, guys. And you'll see, this was my record. This is my record for clan boss damage dealers. This is I'm gonna unhighlight these rows so you can kind of see it a little bit better. This was highlighted like this when I was testing out the 3 poisoners. But this was my record for clan boss damage for a while until I tested Turvold out. She the team outdamaged the ninja team. She did 37 million, but having that weaken on was huge for the rest of the team. And so that was a big surprise. I think she's great. She did better than Fane, and she was almost as good as Annex. I mean, she was awesome. And as an epic too. Number 6 was one of the first videos I did, and I did not have high hopes for Rowan, but she did 38 million. One of the worst team numbers, but just poisons alone and hitting hard, she was awesome. Number 5, we're in the top 5 now. Aethar is an old school champion, and again, I just didn't expect this. I see these kits. It's just hard to tell over the duration of a 50 battle run or 50 turn run. It's hard to tell how much damage you're going to do, and he hits pretty hard. He's got that 4-hitter at random, similar to Dracomorph, and that just does a lot of damage, plus all the poisons he's bringing. Aethar was really good, and I would say this is one of the coolest things. This is the top 4 damage dealer, is the rare Frozen Banshee. And we know she's good. Obviously, you can see here I've got whether there's weekend, and I see blessings here. She's got a 2-star Phantom Touch blessing, which definitely helps because she attacks on every turn. But she just laid on the poisons with poison sensitivity, which increases the damage that poison does. And she did 42.5 million damage. That's almost half the team damage. She basically outdamaged the other 4 champions combined. Now we're in the top 3. I would say these are pretty much hands down, besides any of the champions that I listed as an omission. I would say these are the 3 best clan boss damage dealers. And those are, first one is Anax, who did 48 million, 113 million team damage. He brings decreased defense and weaken as well as poisons. Some of that is inflated a little bit due to the fact that he has a 3-star Phantom Touch Blessing. And this becomes number 2 is my favorite. This is the one I use in my current team, and that's Turvold. He did 55.5 million. The team did 126.4 million because he brings Weaken on his A1. That's with no blessing. That's the top of any of these champions without a blessing, just after Aethar. 55 million. That's a team record for me, or at least it was with the Mythfu team. My new team is actually past that. But if you want to see that, go check out my other videos. But Turvold, it's just so fun to see him hit. He's hitting for almost 700 million with his Juggernaut ability, or 700,000, sorry, with his Juggernaut ability, and it's just fun to see. Now, Ninja is just, he's the boss killer. There's nothing else to say. He did 59.761 million. The team did 116 million without Weaken. He did 59, almost 60 million without Weaken. You put Weaken in that team, I think he probably does 70 million, maybe even more. I mean, he is just an absolute unit. Now, the only reason I'll put like an asterisk next to Ninja is 2 things, actually. One, players can't get him anymore. He was the login champion, and that passed a long time ago. So you haven't been playing for about 6 months or more, I think. Then you just don't get Ninja, which really sucks. I really wish Raid would do something to fix that. And for the other asterisk, I would say is that I think he's too good in other areas of the game to be using in Clan Boss. I use him in my Sand Devil team. If you haven't seen that, go check it out. He's an amazing champion, and he's great for Clan Boss. Obviously, you can see he's the top of the 23 that we tested. I just think he's too good to use here, unless for some reason he's the only champion that can get you to that 1 key or to that 2 key that you need. I would sub him out for somebody else. Like Turvold is great, but he's really, Clan Boss is his specialty, versus Ninja can be good anywhere you put him in the game. So yeah, just to summarize, the most disappointing were definitely these bottom 3, Rhonda, Ruggnor, or really just Rhonda and Gaius. Gaius, the bombs just don't hit. They just don't do enough damage. You know, they do less than a poison, and they're so hard to place. And then Rhonda, she's got a cool kit. It's just not very suited for Clan Boss, in my opinion. And then I would say my biggest surprises or happy surprises were Aethar, Finax, and Frozen Banshee. I mean, just really, really impressive numbers from these 3. I didn't see them coming. I don't know what you guys think. Maybe I'm just missing something. But I was really happy with those. And I do think you guys can use this list in the past or in the future. I'm going to go ahead and link it in the pin notes below, so I'll make it public. And if you guys are curious, you can come back and take a look at this. If you're trying to make decisions, like as I mentioned, you keep a few things in mind. You know, Ninja is tough to tune. You have to find a team that's directly tuned for him. Same thing with Gentoro that we talked about. And there's just a few champions you really can't fit. If you find a team that the person can run in Relentless, and you can use someone like a Rhodos or a Nishak Vermin Lord, anybody who gets an extra turn. But if not, like this team where you can't run Relentless, then those extra turns will put you out of sync. For Geomancer, he's better than Unkillable as opposed to a block damage. The same thing with another omission would be Leorius from the Skinwalkers faction. He does more damage based on how low HP he has. So if you put him in a Maneater team where he's got 1% HP the whole time, he smacks. But he wouldn't be very impressive if we put him in this list. So that's going to be it for the video, guys. I really enjoyed making this series. It was a fun kind of chapter of my YouTube career. You know, I started this when I was probably at 20 or 30 subscribers, and now I'm up almost at 200. And I really enjoyed making this. I love Clan Boss, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video as well. And hopefully this can be helpful information for you guys. So thank you for watching. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe.